Dr. Alex Monroe's morning started like any other. The soft hum of the clinic's heating system, the faint scent of antiseptic in the air, and the quiet rustling of papers on his desk marked the calm before the day's usual rhythm. The small town of Riverside was just waking up outside the window, with golden rays piercing through the early fog that clung stubbornly to the trees lining the road. It was the kind of morning that made Alex appreciate the simple things: steady work, familiar faces, and the chance to help the community's furry friends. But that peace was shattered in a heartbeat. Just as Alex was reviewing his schedule for the day, the clinic's front door slammed open with an urgency that sent a shiver down his spine. A man covered in sweat and dirt stumbled inside, clutching something small and wrapped tightly in a plaid flannel shirt. His eyes were wild, panicked. "Help me," the man gasped, dropping to his knees. "Please, it's a puppy. I found. Get out in the woods, hurt badly. I don't know how long it's been out there." Alex's instincts kicked in instantly. He was no stranger to emergencies, but the raw fear in the man's voice made his heart pound harder. "Okay, calm down," Alex said, moving swiftly to the man's side. "Let me see it." Carefully, the man unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a tiny creature, no bigger than a loaf of bread, trembling violently. Its fur was matted with dirt, and leaves and patches of skin showed through in places. Its tiny chest rose and fell weakly as it struggled for each breath. Its dark eyes, wide and scared, met Alex's gaze. "It's so small," Alex whispered, already pulling on his gloves. And reaching for a towel, he gently cradled the animal, trying to soothe it. The clinic's usual noises seemed to fade away, replaced by the intense focus of saving this fragile life. The man explained between breaths that he'd been hiking the trails near the ridge when he heard faint whimpering. Following the sound, he found the little creature alone in a shallow hollow, shivering and injured. With no other options, he wrapped it up and hurried down to the clinic, hoping against hope for help. Alex felt a mix of sympathy and determination. "We're going to take good care of you," he murmured as he carried the bundle to the treatment room. He set up a warm space by the heat lamp and began examining the tiny body. There were scrapes and bruises, signs of exposure to the elements, but no obvious broken bones. The pup's breathing was shallow but steady. "Looks like it's dehydrated and exhausted," Alex said, reaching for a syringe to administer fluids. As he worked, he couldn't help but marvel at how delicate and vulnerable the animal seemed. Despite its condition, it kept trying to lift its head and look around, eyes full of confusion and trust. The minutes dragged on. Alex kept talking softly, telling the pup stories about the clinic and promising that it was safe now. Every small twitch or blink felt like a victory. Outside, the fog thickened, wrapping the world in silence. Yet beneath the surface of relief, a strange feeling tugged at Alex's mind. There was something different about this pup, something wild and unfamiliar. He noticed the shape of the ears, slightly pointed and twitching, the large paws that seemed too big for its body, and the faint outline of sharp claws that caught the light when it moved. The pup's eyes weren't the warm brown or soft amber typical of dogs. They held a piercing, almost wild intensity. Still, Alex pushed the doubts aside. Right now, survival was the priority. The rest of the morning became a blur of tests, careful feeding and monitoring. Alex called a trusted colleague for a second opinion, and together they planned the best care for the pup. Though exhausted, Alex stayed by the animal's side, feeling a strange connection grow, a silent promise that no matter what, this little life would not be left behind. As the clock ticked toward midday, the clinic phone rang. Alex answered, not expecting the call to change everything he thought he knew. "Alex," the voice said on the other end, "we just saw the photos you sent. That's no ordinary puppy. Please keep it warm and quiet. We're sending a team right away." Alex's breath caught. Questions raced through his mind. What could it be if not a puppy, and what would happen next? The day that began so quietly was about to become unforgettable. Dr. Alex Monroe's heart pounded as he hung up the phone, the wildlife expert's words echoing in his mind. "That's no ordinary puppy." The thought sent a ripple of confusion through him. He glanced down at the tiny creature still trembling in his hands, its eyes half closed but alert, trying to understand its strange new world. The quiet hum of the clinic seemed distant now, replaced by a rising tension. Alex knew that every moment counted. No matter what kind of animal this was, it needed care, and fast. He moved quickly but carefully, setting up a makeshift nest under a heat lamp. Soft blankets cushioned the fragile body, and the gentle warmth was meant to mimic the comfort of a mother's embrace. The clinic staff, sensing the urgency, rallied around him, offering quiet words of encouragement and readying supplies. Alex pulled out a syringe filled with saline solution. Dehydration was the first battle. With slow, steady hands, he administered small doses under the pup's skin, watching for any sign of distress. The animal twitched, but didn't resist. It seemed to understand in its own way that this stranger was there to help. But as the minutes passed, Alex realized the pup's breathing was still shallow, too weak for a creature its size. He grabbed the stethoscope and listened intently. Its tiny heart was racing, irregular, as if fighting an invisible enemy. "We need to stabilize its vitals," he told the nurse, who immediately prepared oxygen support. The clinic wasn't equipped for critical care like a hospital, but Alex was determined to make the best of what he had. Time stretched. Every beep of the monitor, every shallow breath, was a reminder of the delicate line between life and loss. Alex sat beside the pup, speaking softly, his voice steady despite the whirlwind inside him. "Hang on, little one," he whispered. "We're not done yet." Despite the effort, the pup's eyes remained wary, watching the ceiling and the unfamiliar faces around it. Alex noticed its sharp ears twitching at every sound, the door opening, footsteps in the hallway, a cough. From the nurse. The animal was alert, almost too alert for a sick pup. Curiosity gnawed at Alex. The ears weren't floppy like most puppies he'd treated. They were pointed, almost triangular, like something from a wild animal he'd only seen in books. He examined the paws again. The claws were longer and sharper than any dog pup he'd encountered. He wondered how such an animal could survive alone in the woods, how it had escaped predators, storms, and the biting cold of the night. As the afternoon sun filtered weakly, through the clinic windows, Alex's phone buzzed with messages from the wildlife team. They were only a few miles away, racing to reach him with specialized equipment and knowledge. Alex felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Relief that experts were coming, and anxiety over what they might discover. Meanwhile, the small town's residents began to trickle into the clinic, drawn by the news spreading like wildfire. Children peered curiously through the windows, their faces pressed against the glass as they whispered, "Is it a puppy? What kind of puppy?" Alex smiled weakly. He wished he had answers. The waiting was unbearable, but Alex refused to let fatigue slow him down. He continued tending the pup, feeding it small drops of milk replacement, keeping it warm and stroking its fur to provide comfort. Every now and then, the pup would lift its head, staring at Alex with eyes so intense it was impossible not to feel a connection. It was a silent plea, a fragile trust in this stranger who had suddenly become its protector. Hours later, just as the clinic lights flickered on to signal evening, the wildlife team arrived. They moved swiftly, their faces serious but hopeful. With gentle hands, they examined the pup, nodding in recognition. "He's right," one expert said quietly. "This isn't a dog pup. It's a grey wolf, one of the rarest we've seen in this area." Alex felt a wave of awe wash over him. The wildness he'd sensed was real. He had been caring for a creature from a world he barely understood, an animal that belonged to the forest, not the clinic. The team explained that the pup had likely been separated from its pack during a recent storm, vulnerable and alone. The next steps would be tricky. Raising a wild animal in captivity wasn't simple, and preparing it to return to the wild would take time and patience. Alex's mind raced with questions and emotions. The challenge was immense, but so was the reward. That night, as the clinic settled into quiet once more, Alex sat beside the pup, watching its chest rise and fall with each breath. The journey was just beginning, and he was ready to face whatever came next. The clinic was unusually quiet after the wildlife team left, but Dr. Alex Monroe's mind was anything but calm. He sat in his small office, staring at the photos he'd taken of the tiny animal earlier in the day. The realization that what he'd been caring for wasn't a puppy, but a grey wolf pup kept echoing in his thoughts. The more he looked, the more details he noticed, clues he had missed in the rush of the rescue. Alex leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. He knew wolves were elusive and powerful creatures, but seeing one so young and vulnerable in his clinic felt surreal. He had spent years working with domestic animals, but this was a whole different world. The wildness that flickered behind. The pup's eyes stirred something deep inside him, a mixture of awe, respect, and a touch of fear. Unable to sit still, Alex stood and walked back to the treatment room where the pup lay nestled under the heat lamp. The animal's breathing was steadier now, and it was beginning to open its eyes more often, watching the world with a cautious curiosity. As Alex approached, the pup's ears twitched and it gave a soft whimper, a sound that tugged at his heart. He crouched down and gently ran his fingers through the fur. It was coarse, different from the soft fur of a domestic dog. The subtle scent of pine and earth clung to it, as if the forest itself had left a trace. The paws caught his attention again, large and powerful, with sharp nails that seemed designed for running and hunting, not playing fetch or cuddling on a couch. Alex's mind raced. He realized he'd been viewing the pup through the lens of familiarity, assuming it was just a stray puppy because that was what he knew. But the clues were undeniable. This was a creature born of the wild, shaped by instincts that no human could tame. His curiosity sparked a new determination. If this pup was going to survive, he needed to learn more. Not just about its immediate health, but about its nature, its needs, and what kind of life awaited it beyond the clinic walls. He pulled out his phone and began researching. Articles about grey wolves, their behavior, their habitats. He read stories of wolf pups lost from their packs, rescued and raised temporarily before being released back into the wild. The challenges were immense. Wolves depended on their families and the wilderness for survival. Raising one in captivity required careful balance, nurturing without domesticating, protecting without humanizing. Just then the pup stirred, stretching its small legs and lifting its head. Its sharp eyes locked onto Alex's, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. There was a wild intelligence there, a spark that reminded Alex how fragile and fierce life could be. The phone buzzed again. It was the wildlife rescue coordinator, sending detailed care instructions and asking for updates. Alex typed back, describing the pup's behavior and condition. He promised to follow the guidelines carefully, but admitted the difficulty of treating such a wild soul in a human world. The afternoon wore on as Alex shifted between reading, monitoring the pup, and preparing food designed to mimic a mother, wolf's milk. The clinic staff watched with a mixture of fascination and concern, wondering what kind of future awaited the mysterious little animal that had captured their hearts. Outside, the fog had lifted, revealing the vast forest that stretched just beyond the town. Alex looked out the window, imagining the pup's family somewhere in those woods, waiting and hoping. The thought was bittersweet. This pup had survived storms and loneliness, but now depended on humans to survive the next chapter. He knew he couldn't keep the pup here forever. The goal was clear: heal, nurture, then return it to the wild where it belonged. But how to do that without losing the essence of what made it wild? As the sun dipped low, casting warm amber light into the clinic, Alex sat back down beside the pup. It was no longer just an injured animal. It was a living reminder of the fragile connection between humans and nature, a challenge to his skills, and a story that had only just begun. For the first time since the rescue, Alex allowed himself to hope, not just that the pup would survive, but that he could help it thrive, wild and free. The phone's sudden ring shattered the quiet stillness of the clinic, just as dusk was settling outside. Dr. Alex Monroe's hands were busy preparing a special meal for the pup, a carefully mixed formula designed to nourish and strengthen the fragile little body. He glanced at the caller ID, recognizing the number of the Wildlife Rescue Center. His heart skipped a beat. "Alex," the voice on the other end was calm but urgent. "We've reviewed the photos and details you sent us. We're mobilizing a team now. This pup isn't just any wolf. It's part of a rare population in this "Region, we need you to keep it stable until we arrive, but things are more serious than we first thought." Alex's brow furrowed. "What do you mean? Is the pup in danger?" "There's a chance it's suffering from hypothermia and malnutrition, but more importantly, its condition means it can't survive alone for long. We've seen cases where pups that young need constant care, and without it their chances drop sharply. We're coming with specialized equipment and a veterinarian who knows wolves intimately." Alex nodded, though the wildlife expert couldn't see him. "I understand. I'll keep monitoring and doing everything I can." The call ended, but the weight of the news settled over him like a thick fog. The pup was more fragile than he had imagined. Every breath, every heartbeat now felt like a countdown. He returned to the treatment room, where the pup lay curled in the nest. The creature's breathing was shallow but steady. Alex gently lifted its tiny head and stroked the coarse fur, murmuring, "Help is coming. Hang on just a little longer." His mind raced as he prepared for the team's arrival. He double-checked the heating lamp, adjusted the oxygen supply, and set up a quiet space away from the clinic's usual bustle. Every detail mattered when saving a life so delicate. Minutes passed like hours. The clinic staff, usually busy with routine tasks, gathered quietly, sensing the tension. They shared whispered hopes and fears, drawn together by the unexpected. Drama unfolding in their small town. Alex found himself alone again for a moment, staring out the window into the darkening woods. The trees swayed gently in the evening breeze, shadows stretching like silent watchers. Somewhere out there was the pup's pack, a wild family waiting for its lost member, or mourning its absence. The thought tugged painfully at Alex's heart. He'd never imagined he'd become part of this wild story. But now there was no turning back. Suddenly the clinic door opened, and a group of people entered swiftly but carefully. Leading them was Dr. Karen Lopez, a wildlife veterinarian with years of experience treating wolves and other wild animals. She carried a specialized kit filled with medicines, diagnostic tools, and equipment for intensive care. "Dr. Monroe?" she asked, her voice steady and reassuring. "That's me," Alex replied, stepping forward. "I've been caring for the pup since this morning." Karen smiled briefly, then knelt beside the nest to examine the animal. Her practiced hands gently checked the pup's temperature, pulse, and reflexes. "It's in rough shape," she said quietly. "But there's hope if we act fast." Together, Alex and Karen worked swiftly, stabilizing the pup and running quick tests. Karen explained that wolf pups at this age are especially vulnerable, not just physically, but emotionally. Separation from their mother and pack can cause trauma that affects their development and survival. Alex listened closely, absorbing every detail. He realized this rescue was more than a medical challenge. It was a race against time and nature itself. As the night deepened, the clinic transformed into a temporary haven. The pup, now wrapped in warm blankets and carefully monitored, rested in a quiet room. Alex and Karen took turns watching over it, sharing stories and strategies. Karen spoke about the next steps, transferring the pup to a specialized sanctuary where it could receive the care needed to grow strong enough to return to the wild. The sanctuary had facilities to mimic natural conditions and experts trained in rewilding young wolves. Alex felt a surge of gratitude. Without this team, his efforts might have fallen short. Later, as the clinic quieted down and staff began to leave for the night, Alex stayed behind, sitting beside the pup's nest. He looked down at the small face, the fierce eyes, the twitching ears, and felt a profound respect for the wild spirit trapped inside. This was no ordinary rescue. It was a lesson in humility and hope. The day had brought a revelation that changed everything, and Alex knew that whatever came next, he was ready to fight for this little life. The reality of what he was saving, far beyond a simple puppy, left him speechless. But in that silence was a promise, to protect, to heal, and to honor the wild heart he had been entrusted with. The sun had long set when the wildlife rescue team finally settled into the clinic, turning the quiet space into a hive of focused activity. Dr. Alex Monroe watched as Dr. Karen Lopez and her colleagues carefully lifted the small bundle from the warm nest he had prepared. For the first time, the pup was fully visible under the bright examination lights. a tiny creature both fragile and fierce. Karen's eyes softened as she examined the pup's body more closely. "You've done an incredible job keeping it stable," she said quietly. "But now we can confirm what we suspected all along. This is a grey wolf pup, less than 2 weeks old." Alex blinked in surprise. He had expected something wild, yes, but hearing the words aloud made the reality sink in. This tiny life was a member of a species many people feared or misunderstood, a symbol of the wilderness itself. And yet, here, it was in a small-town clinic, wrapped in blankets and receiving human care. The team laid out their plan clearly. The pup needed immediate warmth, nourishment, and constant monitoring. Karen explained that wolf pups are born blind and helpless, relying entirely on their pack's protection. Without its family, this pup faced grave dangers, not just from injury or hunger, but from loneliness and stress. "Raising a wolf pup is nothing like raising a dog," Karen said firmly. "It requires careful balance, providing care while preserving. So its wild instincts. If it becomes too accustomed to humans, it could struggle to survive when returned to the wild." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was bigger than any case he had handled before. As the team set up portable incubators and special feeding equipment brought from the sanctuary, Alex stayed close, watching the pup. The little creature stirred, its small body twitching as if dreaming of running through dense forests under moonlit skies. Karen smiled gently. "These pups have a resilience most people don't realize. They're survivors." But survival was a precarious tightrope. The pup's condition, while stabilized, was still fragile. It shivered occasionally, despite the warmth. Its eyes flickered, open for brief moments, revealing a piercing amber gaze that seemed to carry centuries of wild knowledge. Alex found himself drawn in, captivated by the pup's silent strength. The staff at the clinic had gathered around, whispering among themselves, with a mix of awe and excitement. The news of the wolf pup had spread quickly through the town, igniting a spark of curiosity and pride. For many, it was a reminder of the wilderness that still existed just beyond the edges of their daily lives. Outside the clinic's windows, the forest loomed dark and vast, a reminder of where the pup belonged and the life it was meant to return to. Karen briefed Alex on the sanctuary's capabilities. It was a remote facility deep in the mountains, equipped to care for young wolves, in conditions that mimicked their natural habitat. There, the pup would be nurtured, taught to hunt, and prepared for a future back in the wild. But before that could happen, it needed time to heal and grow strong. Alex felt a deep sense of purpose settling over him. The wolf pup wasn't just a patient. It was a symbol of hope and the delicate balance between human civilization and untamed nature. As the night deepened, Alex sat by the incubator, gently brushing the fur away from the pup's face. The little nose twitched and the pup let out a faint whimper. Alex leaned closer, whispering, "You're going to make it, I promise." The experience was humbling. This tiny creature had survived storms, solitude, and injury, yet still held the wild spirit that had fascinated humans for generations. The reality of the rescue was clear. It was no ordinary animal. It was a wild soul that had crossed paths with humanity in a way few ever would. For Alex, it was a reminder of why he became a vet, to save lives, no matter how small or extraordinary. That night, as the clinic settled into quiet once more, the wolf pup rested peacefully, safe for now, but destined for something far greater. And for Alex, the journey had only just begun. The early morning light filtered softly through the clinic windows, casting a warm glow over the small room where the wolf pup rested. Dr. Alex Monroe had barely slept, his mind swirling with thoughts about the fragile life in his care and the journey that lay ahead. The wildlife team was scheduled to arrive soon to transport the pup to the sanctuary, but before that, there were still crucial steps to take. The pup's health was improving steadily, but it remained delicate. Each movement, each breath, a reminder of how easily things could change. Alex moved quietly around the room, checking the incubator's temperature and preparing the next feeding. The pup's amber eyes flickered open briefly, focusing on him with a flicker of recognition. It was a small moment, but it filled Alex with hope. Karen Lopez entered, carrying a detailed binder filled with notes, schedules, and care instructions. "Good morning," she said softly. "The pup's doing better than expected. We have a window today to make the transfer." Alex nodded. "It's incredible to see it respond so well after everything it's been through," Karen smiled. "They're tougher than they look, but the journey to the sanctuary won't be easy. It's important that we minimize stress during transport." Alex listened intently as Karen outlined the plan. The sanctuary was nestled deep in the mountains, a place where the wolf pup could gradually reconnect with its wild instincts. Their specialists would continue the care, including lessons in hunting and socializing with other wolves. But before that, Karen added, "We need to make sure the pup is as strong as possible. We'll provide additional nutrition, monitor vitals, and create a calm environment during the trip." Alex understood the gravity of the responsibility. The sanctuary was the best chance for this pup to survive and thrive, but the transition would be delicate. Too much stress, and the pup could regress. Too little preparation, and its wild nature could be lost. The clinic staff gathered briefly for a final briefing. Everyone was energized by the significance of their role. This wasn't just another rescue, it was a mission that connected them to the heart of the wild, bridging the gap between the world they knew and the wilderness beyond. As the day wore on, Alex found moments to sit quietly with the pup, talking in low tones, offering gentle touches. The little creature was still, fragile, but its spirit was undeniable. It was as if the wild within was waking from a long sleep. The thought struck Alex deeply. This pup had survived alone, exposed to dangers he could only imagine. And now it was on the cusp of a new chapter, a chance to grow, to learn, and one day to run free. In the late afternoon, the wildlife team arrived, their vehicles equipped, with climate-controlled cages and medical supplies. Alex helped prepare the pup for transport, wrapping it in soft blankets and securing it carefully. The moment was bittersweet. Alex knew the pup's future depended on this step, but the thought of parting was hard. Karen placed a reassuring hand on Alex's shoulder. "You've done something incredible here. This pup owes you its life." Alex smiled, feeling the weight of those words. "I just hope it knows that it's not alone anymore." The pup stirred gently, as if sensing the significance of the moment. As the team loaded the pup into the vehicle, Alex watched with a mixture of pride and hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since the rescue he felt confident. This was no longer just a story about saving a lost animal. It was about giving a wild soul a second chance. The journey to the sanctuary was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter for both the wolf pup and the man who had saved it. The drive to the sanctuary was long and winding, the vehicle cutting through thick forests and climbing steep mountain roads. Dr. Alex Monroe sat beside the transport cage, eyes fixed on the small wolf pup nestled inside, wrapped in soft blankets, and humming quietly. The pup's amber eyes blinked slowly, adjusting to the gentle rocking of the vehicle, as if sensing it was moving toward a new world. Alex felt a strange mixture of relief and nervous anticipation. The sanctuary was a place of hope, but it was also a place of change, sometimes difficult, always demanding. This little creature, once lost and alone, was about to face a life shaped by instincts far older than human hands. When they arrived, the sanctuary was breathtaking. Nestled in a valley surrounded by towering pines and snow-capped peaks, it was a place designed to honor the wild. Natural enclosures, rocky dens, and open spaces stretched as far as the eye could see. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and earth. Karen Lopez greeted Alex and the team, her face lighting up with a mixture of professional pride and personal passion. "This is where the pup's real journey begins," she said softly. "We provide everything it needs here, but most importantly, we respect its nature." The pup was carefully transferred from the transport cage to a specially prepared den. Alex knelt beside it, feeling the coarse fur beneath his fingers one last time. The pup gave a small whimper, its eyes meeting his with a trust that felt both fragile and fierce. "It's going to be okay," Alex whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're safe now." Over the next hours, the sanctuary staff began their gentle routines, feeding the pup nutrient-rich formulas, monitoring its vitals and slowly introducing it to the sights and sounds of the forest beyond the den. Unlike the clinic's sterile environment, here the sounds of birds, rustling leaves, and distant howls reminded the pup of its true home. Alex stayed longer than expected, touring the sanctuary with Karen. She explained how they prepared wolves for eventual release, building their strength, teaching hunting skills, and encouraging social bonds with other young wolves. Wolves are family animals, Karen explained. Without a pack, survival is nearly impossible. We hope this pup will one day join a wild pack or even lead one. Alex was struck by the complexity of the work. It wasn't just medicine or care. It was about understanding an ancient language of survival and connection. The pup was more than an animal to save. It was a part of a greater story, a thread in the fabric of wilderness. As the sun dipped below the mountains, casting long shadows over the sanctuary, Alex felt a pang of both sadness and hope. He knew he wouldn't see the pup again for a while, but he carried with him the knowledge that it was in the best hands. Before leaving, he knelt beside the den once more. "Run free one day," he murmured, "and be wild, like you were meant to be." The pup's amber eyes seemed to shine in the fading light, a silent promise of resilience. Back in his car, driving down the mountain road, Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The rescue had transformed him, opening his eyes to the fragile balance between human life and the wild. It was a reminder that sometimes saving a life means letting go, and sometimes the most powerful stories are those written by nature itself. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Alex thought about the wolf pup's journey, one that had started in desperation but was now filled with hope, strength, and freedom. He smiled quietly to himself, knowing the story was far from over. Weeks passed since the wolf pup's arrival at the sanctuary, and Dr. Alex Monroe found himself thinking about it often. Life at the clinic had returned to its usual rhythm, routine checkups, vaccinations, and the steady hum of daily care. But the memory of the fragile pup with wild amber eyes stayed with him like a quiet echo. One afternoon, Karen Lopez called with an update. "Alex," she said warmly, "the pup is doing remarkably well. Stronger, more alert, and even starting to respond to sounds and movements outside its den. The team is optimistic about its future." Alex felt a wave of relief wash over him. "That's wonderful news. I'm so glad it's thriving." Karen laughed softly. "You helped give it the chance. We're just doing our part now." The sanctuary was more than a place of healing. It was a bridge between worlds. The pup was learning the lessons that would one day prepare it to roam free, lessons of trust, independence, and the wild instincts passed down through generations. Back at the sanctuary, the pup had begun to explore its surroundings. The staff had introduced it to other young wolves, allowing tentative interactions that built the foundation of social bonds. It was a slow, delicate process. Every movement, every bark or whimper carried meaning. Alex imagined the pup's journey from helpless stray to confident wild creature, running through the forest under moonlit skies, its pack by its side. The thought filled him with hope and awe. Then one day, Karen shared exciting news. "We're planning a release for the pup in the next few months," she said. "There's a protected area nearby, part of its natural range, where it can join a wild pack or establish its own territory." Alex's heart quickened. The moment was approaching, the moment when human care would give way to wild freedom. "Will you be there?" he asked quietly. Karen smiled. "We'd love for you to join us. You played a crucial role in this pup's story." Alex felt honored and eager. This journey had transformed him as much as it had transformed the pup. He agreed immediately. The weeks that followed were filled with preparation, medical checkups, behavioral assessments, and careful planning with wildlife officials. The pup, now stronger and more agile, showed signs of readiness. Its amber eyes gleamed with a wildfire, a silent declaration of independence. The release day dawned clear and bright. At the sanctuary, the team gathered, their faces a mix of excitement and solemn respect. Alex stood quietly, watching as the pup was loaded into a secure carrier for the short drive to the release site. a vast, untamed wilderness where it belonged. When they arrived, the pup was carefully carried to a secluded clearing, surrounded by towering pines and wildflowers. Alex knelt beside it one last time, feeling the coarse fur beneath his fingers, the warmth of a life saved and given back. With a soft word, the carrier door opened, and the pup stepped out hesitantly. It paused, sniffing the air, ears twitching at the sounds of the forest. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, it bounded into the trees, its movements swift and sure. Alex watched, breath caught in his throat, as the pup disappeared into the wilderness. The howl of a distant wolf echoed through the valley, a haunting call that seemed to welcome the newcomer home. Tears stung Alex's eyes, not sadness, but a deep sense of connection and fulfillment. This was what he had fought for, a wild life, preserved, a second chance given. As he stood among the towering pines, the reality of the journey settled within him. The pup was no longer just a rescued animal. It was a living symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring bond between humans and the wild. For Dr. Alex Monroe, this rescue was more than a story. It was a reminder that sometimes saving a life means trusting the wild heart to find its way home. And sometimes that wild heart beats stronger than anyone ever imagined.